Okay, now we gotta be serious.
Hey everybody, what's up? That's right.
Welcome to
Trey Canard,
everyone's favorite desert test rider.
Desert Ride Test Rider.
Free rider. We call him Kris Keefer. What's up? This is the first episode of All for One, and we're here with Kris Keefer, the test legend himself. Hey, Kris.
Hey.
So
thanks for having me.
We didn't just have a full hour-long conversation.
No.
This isn't at the end of this. This is at the beginning.
This is the beginning.
Yeah.
Where's our coffee?
I forgot to mention the coffee shop's closed.
Hey, it's the first episode. I'll cut you some slack.
Yeah. Well, next episode we'll have it. I'll get you a gift card.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. No, so one of the first things that I thought about was, before I met you, I had a lot of local friends here, and they're like, "Hey, Keefer says this about this bike. Keefer says this about that bike." And I don't really follow any media.
Yeah.
Like, if something's like happening, I'll like kind of tune in, but for the most part, I don't follow anything.
So you're not on social media all day looking at Instagram?
Not, especially not like,
yeah.
This bike or that bike or
right.
what's going on. Like usually if something happens in the media, it's like people are telling me. But anyways, I'm like, who's Keefer? Like I knew of you a little bit, you
right.
know, but I'm like, what does he know about motorcycles?
Yeah.
And so the first test that I showed up at with American Honda, the race team, first time the race team was like really kind of starting to get involved. You were there, and I was like, "Ah, oh, Keefer."
Here we go. Here is this guy.
But I got to know you, and then I got to see you work a little bit, and I was, I have some friends. One of our mutual friends, Ricky Gilmore,
yep.
KYB. We just started talking about like, dude, Keefer he knows what he's doing, and so it was kind of cool to kind of see that transition of how I viewed you, but. First of all, like how did you get into that role? Because for myself, people like Tickle, Mariah's past test riders, kind of came from this like more, they were factory racers, and they moved in this test role.
Yep.
And I know you raced and had some success, but I feel like your testing career like far outweighs your racing career. So how did you like go from enthusiast rider racer to test rider? How did that happen? Yeah,
so just well, thank you for that compliment, by the way. It means a lot to me.
Like the part where I dissed you?
Yes, exactly. Well, the funny thing about that is like when you hear about someone and you do it to a high level like you are, you immediately think like, oh great, like this guy thinks he knows everything, right? And I try not to do that. And when I hear people say, oh, I heard Keefer say this, it almost cringes me a little bit because I don't want people thinking I know everything because I'm not that kind of guy. But if I do know something, I'm willing to share that.
Yeah.
So that's funny that you say that because I was like, oh man, I don't want to come out like I know everything.
Not to stop you, but now when people are asking me about bikes, one of my first responses is, what did Keefer say about it? So it's kind of switched, but
that's good. That's good. So basically, how it all started, like, you, Ryan, Tickle, you rode at a very high level. For me, I kind of knew that wasn't going to be my meal ticket. I knew where I came from, how much money my parents had, and what we were able to do. And honestly, like, I look back on it now and I know my talent level wasn't like your guys' talent level. So I was like, how can I make it and be able to make money and ride my dirt bike? Because coming from the high desert of California, there's all kinds of bad things that happen, and all I wanted to do is stay away from that and ride my dirt bike. So I always tinkered when I was younger. I always wanted to mess with my bike, go ride it, and do these things. And basically, I got really lucky, and I was working as a shipper. I don't know if you know this, but and this is a Honda guy. His name was Al Baker. Are you familiar?
Familiar, yeah. I don't know Al, but I know, yeah.
So I worked at Al Baker's XRs Only and in high school as a shipper, and I would bug Carl Kramer from Dirt Rider magazine because he would come in there from time to time, and I would ask him, hey, can I do anything for you? And he was like, no, not right now, maybe later. And every time he would come, I would ask him, hey, do you need someone? Well, one of their photo models got hurt, and I got to go do a photo session with him on a 2000 Honda Sierra 125. And he liked that I could corner both ways. Like if I said, or if he said, hey, go left, go right, try to bar drag, I could do that. And he was impressed.
Yeah.
And then he started using me, and that kind of just took off into this whole thing of working at Yamaha, being at KTM, and just forming my test life before I actually had a chance to really go after my racing. So my first Supercross wasn't until I was 29 years old.
That's crazy.
So I was just basically trying to create a life for me by riding and testing dirt bikes. That's kind of where I knew I wanted to go.
Yeah. So I have a couple of questions off of that. One, did you always were you always drawn to testing? And then two, kind of in that process, was there ever any doubt, kind of, do I have what it takes, or how did you kind of work through that?
I wasn't good when I started.
Yeah.
I
don't think any of us are.
No,
by the way.
I wasn't good. I had a lot of guidance from Doug Dubach.
Yeah.
Doug helped me out a lot, and he just kind of reaffirmed what I already knew.
Yeah.
But I wasn't in the dark anymore, and he kind of just opened that door with some light for me. So the first thing he taught me is it's okay to say I don't know.
Yeah.
Or I didn't feel something.
Yeah.
And I learned that really young. And when you go to a test, and I had guys like Ed Scheidler at Yamaha, old school guys, hard-nosed guys that would try to trick you to see if you're legit so they could use you. And that's kind of how I learned. And I was always just really honest and forthcoming, and gave them the information that I felt, and they liked that, and that's kind of led me in that position. But I think having good people around you, and you know this from racing, is what kind of shapes and makes who you are.
Yeah.
And having those guys that have been testing for a long time, especially like Doug and Ed from Yamaha, they really just helped me broaden my testing, knowledge. And I read books a lot. I'm a big reader. I like to read books. And
you can read in the desk?
Yeah. We can read, and we have teeth. They're not great, but we do have some teeth. Although I don't know, it feels like I'm at home right here.
Dude, the Oklahoma is just the green, dirty desk.
Yeah, exactly. There's just a little bit more moisture here. But yeah, so I had those guys like to read, and I just knew hey, this is the way I need to go. And I just saw a niche in our sport. I think I can make some money and do something here and do that. So.
Yeah. I know anytime you're trying to achieve something, there's always doubt in there, right? A lot of guys look at really good riders and think, man, they're just they'd never really struggled with that. But I think it's the guys that can kind of reconcile that doubt that allows them to kind of keep going. So in that process for you, before you were legendary test guy.
It's so bad when you still say it like that.
Before you were Keefer,
guy,
was there moments when you're man, I don't know if I can do that. I've had some bad tests before.
Yeah.
Where you're man, how you ride this setup a couple days later, and you're what was I thinking?
Yeah.
So was there any moments like that for you, and what kind of allowed you to kind of push through those moments?
Yeah, actually quite a few. Just like you said, I always thought, I guess that's one of the reasons why I probably was never a great racer, because I didn't have a lot of confidence in what I did. And then when I got to something that I was kind of good at, I was oh, I can do this. And then when you first have that hurdle and you don't have a good day, or the setup wasn't right, or you kind of maybe misguided some direction, you wonder, at least for me, I would drive home and I'm I don't know if I could do this, I don't know if I'm that good enough of a rider or a test guy to be able to help these manufacturers create a better motorcycle. And what I've learned is, and my dad's a hard-nosed kind of guy, you work, if you have something wrong with you, you still work, you just got to go to work. So I just kind of use that mantra with my dad, is hey, you got to keep trying. If you don't keep trying, you're never going to be good.
Right.
And not everyone is good really quick. People have different paths to success. And the Keefer family, my dad, we just never had a shortcut to success. We always had to work hard for what we had.
Yeah.
And for me, I just kind of remember that. And as I got older and I did it more, those days became less and less, and then it just kind of evolved into what it is now.
I feel like the more experience I get too, you're still gonna have those days, but the less they affect you.
Correct.
You know, you're like, yeah, I can see where I went a little sideways. Let's just not go that way next time or whatever.
And you're dealing with a human, right?
Yeah.
And we make mistakes. So that side of it, I think the engineers understand that. Like some days aren't going to be great. Some days are going to be better, as long as when we come to an end of this process, that we're in the right direction.
Yeah.
So.
I remember one of the times where, you know, tests are kind of long sometimes. You're waiting on changes.
Yep.
But I think I remember you telling me that you didn't really grow up riding that much motocross.
Yep.
I think you told me that like you would ride by Racetown.
Yeah.
Like in the desert by Racetown, you kind of go like, oh, that's a cool motocross track. I want to do that. So what kind of drew you to motocross? I know like off-road scene, especially desert, is pretty core.
Yeah.
Especially in Southern California. What kind of like drew you to the motocross side of it?
Cost, honestly. So for me, like growing up, my dad raced District 37, which is hare and hound associations out in Southern California, and we'd go out camping as a family, and we'd watch my dad race. So growing up, and I'm sure we can talk about your dad too, like I wanted to be like my dad, right? So my dad raced off-road. I want to go race off-road. And my first race, I was 9 years old, and it was a big 40-mile loop, and he just sent you off with 200 dudes. Yeah. And you're like, hey, find the ribbon and go do that, right? So my heroes growing up were Danny Hamill, Larry Rossler, Ty Davis, all these guys that grew up racing off-road. And then when I was about 14, my dad's like, man, the desert off-road's tearing up your motorcycles too much, and I can't keep you on a good motorcycle. So let's go try this motocross thing. And yeah, I would go race motocross and didn't tear up my bike as much. So plain and simple, it was cost. It costed my dad less money to go have me race motocross than off-road. But living where we live in the high des, I got to ride every single day from my house. Yeah. So for people that don't get it, if you don't have property or a track near you, you can't really do that. But every day after school, my dad would be like, you got to do a little bit of yard work, because we have weeds in the desert.
You got to rake the gravel around.
Yep. So I had to do a square of weeds. That square got smaller and smaller and smaller as I got older, because I didn't want to do any work. And then I would just go ride. Yeah. And I just learned to ride sand tracks, build tracks after rain, all these things that I don't think a lot of kids nowadays get to do. Yeah. And then within that, I got to mess with my motorcycle a lot, because we have a lot of different terrain, and I would just tinker with my bike and every day and go after school and just go ride dirt bikes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the things I appreciate about my time. Like I was kind of ahead of like all the prep tracks growing up anyway. And I made like 4,000 turn tracks.
You're like a free range kid.
Yeah, you just go, it's like, this is your canvas. Go see what you can make. Yep. And I think I learned a lot from that, you know, whereas now like track's pretty groomed most of the time, and you pretty much can just send it, where a lot of the technical stuff I was riding is like, you gotta be pretty technical to even.
Yeah, because you're dealing with whatever the earth gives you, right? So like for me, you got hard pack over here, sand over here, you got rocks. Yeah. It's not prepped.
Some needles.
So quick story. I had a homeless guy. Have you heard this story?
I think you've told me, but I want to hear it. Yeah. Go for it.
So I had a sand track, and I would ride that a lot. And I went down there one day, and I saw a trailer, just an abandoned trailer, and an old man. And I'm riding my track. He comes out, so I'm kind of naturally freaked out, like, oh boy. But ended up talking to him. Seemed pretty normal, like with it. And so ended up befriending this guy. And I said, hey, would you mind holding the pit board for me out here? Like, if I gave you a pit board, would you do some work? He's like, yeah, I'd love to do that. So his name was Ray, so I called him Desert Ray. So I'd come home and say, hey, Mom, Dad, I met a guy down the sand wash. And they're like, excuse me? You met a what? I'm like, he's really nice, he's cool. So just a homeless guy that was down there in sand wash. I gave him a pit board and a marker. Every day after school that I would go down there, he was ready to go. He was so excited.
He's like, where were you last Thursday?
Exactly. No cell phones back then. So if I didn't show up, he's like, oh, you didn't come the other day. I'm like, yeah, I had school and I didn't do that. But homeless guy was my mechanic, my pit board guy down in the desert. And He'd come up and take showers. We let him take showers. My mom would buy him Crown Royal.
Here's your payment.
That was his payment. He'd get like some Crown Royal whiskey, and yeah, that's kind of how we grew up, just like free range and just crazy stuff like that.
Free range kid.
Free range kid.
Yeah.
Shorty came up with that.
Yeah.
Shorty's like, there's not many free range kids nowadays. I'm like, that's a great.
That's a full Shorty statement.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
There. Yeah. Well, that's cool. So Loretta's is coming up. You're actually in Oklahoma at game, riding the track. Is Brownie racing this year?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? I think you've been riding a little bit more East Coast.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's giving you a little hope?
It's so hard with that guy. Like I go ride there. My kid's in Georgia riding, and he's there, and he's not that good in practice. I'm just like,
he's just full game time.
Yeah, it's like I'm like, I have no problem. And then he goes to Loretta's, and he's something else. So yeah, I don't know. If I can get a good start, I can maybe see him. That will help me. But now I got Shorty coming. All these guys are getting older, so I'm like, oh man, I'm screwed.
Yeah, I saw Brownie probably a few weeks ago at a race, and I'm like, you been riding? He's like, oh yeah, I rode this week. It's been like 3 or 4 months, but I rode.
That's his move. He claims he doesn't do anything, but the guy is like, I see what he does, and he works out just like a 25-year-old professional athlete.
Yeah,
still.
He's still like so fit.
Yeah, he's fit.
Yeah,
and he's a monster on a road bike.
Yeah.
So all these guys like Jalik and these guys, and I was talking to Dino the other day, and he was like, is your kid riding cycles with Brownie? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, those are some of the worst days of my life riding with Brownie.
What a machine. Oh, dude. Okay, so kind of moving into like a little bit of the testing side of things. I know, you've got Aiden, and as a tester, as a father, what are some things that you want him to know, like as a racer, about his bike as he moves forward in his career?
I think first and foremost, what we do, Heather and I, is, I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but we're like, hey, the chances of you making it and making enough money in your career to be able to retire from professional motocross and supercross is very slim. So you need to have some kind of backup plan. And if you like dirt bikes, then maybe you should learn a little bit about your motorcycle. So maybe you can do something like that if that's what you want to do. So for me, at a young age, even when he was on 80s, I would go, hey, I'm going to do something to your bike, and you see if you can feel anything. And of course, he couldn't feel anything for the longest time. But the past maybe 3 or 4 years, I can see all of that work that we did together when we were younger kind of catching up now.
Yeah.
Because he can kind of understand a little bit more what his suspension's doing. And if he has something going on in his engine, like, sometimes kids can't decide if, hey, I don't know if I'm going to have a failure here pretty soon, or hear something in their engine. So he's really good about hearing things and stuff like that. So we worked more on that when he was younger.
Yeah.
But I think now he sat back, especially when COVID hit. He got to ride with me a lot and go to work with me.
Yeah.
So I think he sat back and soaked it in and watched me. And he's been with me for so long. Like, in this industry, you get to take your kids to work or something like that, and they get to see what you do because it's dirt bikes, right? And as a parent, and you'll get there soon, you think you're not doing a good job.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm a horrible father. Like, he's not learning anything. He's not doing anything I taught him. And then all of a sudden, you'll see it, and you're like, oh my gosh, they've been watching this whole time. So I'm at that point now where it's rewarding for me to look at him and watch him and be like, oh yeah, he does understand. And he'll come back to the truck and be like, hey, I think it's a little soft, and it is a little bit low in the front. So it's not great, but it's a lot better than I see other like 17, 18-year-old kids.
Yeah, I remember when I came in, one of my first tests, I was getting ready that season or that summer for Loretta's, but then I was going to go straight to Millville and race the race bike. And I hadn't ridden the race bike at all. And then as soon as that was over, I was going to go right back to my amateur bike and go race for Loretta's. So we're at this test, and I'm just like basically making things up.
Try to tell him? It's no good. I don't want to.
Dude, this thing's awesome. You know, like I had no idea. I was in every test lap was like 5 laps long, and I'm just sending it so
everything's
hard.
like up here,
Yeah.
and you see something really nice on your bike, like that bike's got to be better.
Yeah, I remember we had these oil coolers, and they were like all this like shiny stuff, and it was so sick.
Man, I kind of feel bad at times because he walks out into the shop or the garage and he sees a lot of these bikes, and I always try to tell him, I go, hey, this isn't real life. Like if I wasn't in this industry, you'd have a bike, I'd have a bike, and that would be it.
Yeah.
So I think some kids his age might assume that he gets everything and all the best stuff, but I really tried not to feed him all of the good stuff when he was young. He rode stock bikes. He had a bike, but it was pretty much stock. And just now, recently, he just started getting some good stuff on his motorcycle. So I think for me, that was important to let him know, like, hey, here's what motorcycles can be. And if you work hard and you do some things, then you can make them to be even better, you know? So.
Yeah, when people ask me, like, how do you teach someone to test, that's usually my advice, is just, like, get a screwdriver, find a rough straightaway, and just start moving stuff around, you know, because you don't really know until you experience that feeling.
Correct.
And you can't really put words to what's happening until you finally kind of go way too far and go like, oh, wow, I felt that. What was that?
Yeah.
So I think that's super good advice.
And it's crazy because riding a dirt bike, and even as a racer, you know this, it's a feeling.
Yeah.
Everything from the rider standpoint is what you feel on the motorcycle. And testing is no different than that. Like, you hit a bump, it feels a certain way. And then you have a different suspension spec, it feels another way. And it's more experience. You have all of these things that have happened to you as a test rider, and you feel all these different things. And then it grows with you, and you kind of already know, like, you go on a bump, you're like, oh, that's that.
Yeah.
So you've done it so many times, right? So it just takes muscle memory and time to learn all that stuff.
Yeah. There was a point in my career when I knew too much.
Okay.
Right? Like, I knew when I knew too much is when I was racing. I was in my head thinking about, for the next moto, oh, we should probably do this. You know, we should.
You're ahead of yourself.
I was ahead of myself. Yeah. And I think that hurt me kind of in the end, because I was not racing at that point. I was thinking about what needed to happen with the bike, like way over here.
Okay.
So what do you think is the right amount? I think there's a right amount of knowledge. Yeah. I think, you've heard about guys like always throwing the kitchen sink at their bike, huge changes all the time. So do you think there's a limit to what you should know? And then do you think there's any core things you should know as a racer that's trying to race, not test?
Yeah. For me, it's like, it's hard because I've never been an elite level racer, but I've been around a lot of them, and I think they have this pre-notion of what their bike should feel like. Or I even talked to general consumer, hey man, my bike's doing this over a bump. I'm like, it's a bump. You're gonna feel
it's a motorcycle.
You're gonna feel bumps. And I think when people think, oh, I got a kid or I'm getting all this, they think they're not gonna feel some of those bigger things on the track. But you're always gonna feel those things. It's a matter of the measure of what you feel, right? So I always thought, like, a dumb racer is a better racer because they don't think as much. I always thought way too much. So that slowed me down as a racer. But as a test guy, it's helped me because it creates that shortcut to give to the engineers, like, hey, this is what it feels like. We probably should go that direction. And learning more about suspension and low speed and mid speed, where it affects the changes that they do affect on the track. I can kind of help them, guide them to say, hey, we need to go more that direction, just because it saves time. And it makes their life so much easier. So there's a balance of being too needy as a racer versus being too smart. And I think some of these guys nowadays, I don't say all of them, but there is some out there that, like, they want their bike to work exactly like this, when I think you just take a step back, think a little less, worried about going faster, and as long as your bike's balanced and you have some power, I think it's pretty good. But I guess it's hard because as a test guy, you always want the best, and you're chasing that all the time. But I learned, and same thing, like, an older guy told me this one day, you're only as good as what you know. So if I don't know, like, hey, do you want to try that? Yes, I do want to try that, because then I'll make my mind if it's good or not.
Right.
But you're only as good as what you try and what you know. So it's a tough balance.
Yeah, it is hard. One of the things I do.
Were you a thinker when you were racing?
I was a way overthinker. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you like that all your life?
All my life, I was overthinker, and then kind of the same thing. I always had like very low self-confidence, right?
Really?
Yeah.
It's crazy for me, and I'm sure people watch it to hear you say that, because you never rode that way, because you attacked everything so like aggressively.
I think what it allowed me to do is it helped me and hurt me, right? Like I rode with my heart and not my head. And I think I rode with my heart because I was a little bit insecure. And I wanted to be the best, right? So the option was, this thing's telling me I gotta go. And so it worked for me sometimes. But in the moments whenever I needed to kind of like pull back a little bit, and I think the most confident guys can do that. They can pull back and go like, oh, you know what? I'm fifth today.
Right.
And that's just what it is. Or I'm not where I want to be yet. For me, it was like, because I was a little bit insecure and kind of not sure of myself and those kind of things, it was like, I got to prove to the world that I'm good enough.
Who's that more, your mom or your dad's side?
I think it's probably, my mom and my dad, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my dad, really humble beginnings, farmer family, kind of worked up, made enough money to buy his own bike, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we were always like, flipping tires around and making parts last, and then when you show up to the track and like there's kids and they're like, their bikes are brand new, and you're like, oh dude, we must, our motorhome is just like, it made
we're not good enough.
We're like driving in and it's like you're like, oh.
I feel like that now. I'm driving a nice Sprinter and I go into these places, I'm like, I'm poor. I'm poor. But it's funny to hear you say that, because us watching Supercross and the fans, when you see a guys like you just think, this guy has all the confidence in the world. Look how gnarly this guy is. And you would never assume that you're just like a lot of others. Hey, you have some self-doubt.
Yeah, I think for me, it was really eye-opening for me whenever I became a test rider, started working with like some of the guys that I've raced against, like Kenny, for instance. There was some days when Kenny like had a lot of doubt. And I was like in my head going like, I always thought this guy was like, had it all together. And I think that was a great learning lesson for me to go like, we're all human here.
Yes.
Like we're all trying to figure out what we're capable of, what we're not capable of. So, but yeah, I think that's for me while I was racing, kind of what kind of made me take some of those chances was a little bit of, usually when I won, it was like, what happened to those other guys? That was like way too easy. They, that guy must be hurt or something like that.
Like when you won, not to flip this on you, but this is interesting for me. Like when you won, were you thinking a lot, or was it less thinking on those days?
It was easy. Yeah. Like my best days, it was easy, and it seemed like everyone else must have had food poisoning or something.
Right. So someone else had problems, and I was just myself.
I was just doing what I did.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Crazy.
No, I think, one of the things I see that the Lawrences do really well, especially Jet, is when we're testing, he comes in and he says, yeah, that was bad. And you go, okay, well, where was it bad? Oh, over there. I didn't like it. It did this. It felt this way. And then he gives you enough information. Like, I think that's probably key, is just enough. Like, not kind of overselling it, not telling you too much. But I think he's got a great ability and confidence in himself. To say like, I don't need to know everything. I don't need to know exactly what the bike needs. I just need to tell you what I don't like about it.
Right.
And maybe what I want. And for me, I think that's a good balance. Maybe not, I wasn't maybe capable of that, because I was insecure enough to go like, I need to know as much about this as I can, which helped me in the role that I'm in now. But I think as a racer,
did you have a test guy for you when you raced?
Here and there, like we had McGrath, but he kind of did more like preliminary stuff. Like if we had like a he did like BFR was coming out when I was racing. McGrath was testing, so he did some BFR stuff, some second injector stuff. But it was rarely kind of.
So you didn't have a dedicated guy on the team, not like you, like
going to the race each week, trying to understand what I'm thinking, that kind of thing. No. So, and then we actually lost McGrath, I think in 13 or 14. He was done. so a lot of it landed on me.
Right.
So we had the SFF fork then. So a lot of us were scratching our heads.
PFRC and the SFF, man.
What a combo!
Wow,
right?
man. How did you not do so good? It's funny because when you say like Jet knows just enough, that's nice because he doesn't overthink it, right? Here's what I feel. And then they have the team, you, all those guys at Honda that kind of already know what puzzle piece to put in there, right? And that's a huge part that I think some teams are missing.
Yeah, teams and riders. You know, I feel like Dazzy probably doesn't get enough credit with those boys. I mean, I know he gets some credit, but he knows his boys really well, and they respect him a lot. And he's able to kind of like, I think he's a great, like, if I'm kind of a interpreter for the rider, he's like an interpreter again, you know, it's like, it's getting like double filtered,
yeah.
And to where it's like the whole team is able to kind of really rally together. And I think it's helpful too, because sometimes it's hard. As a rider, you don't know a lot of the technical things with a bike. You know, you don't need to be things like stiffer or you know, slower or softer. But there's, as you know, there's so many moving parts. I mean, you can make it stiffer 10 billion different ways.
Yeah.
So trying to find the right.
And that's the thing too, is like, just to go off of Dazzy, like I'm not around the team like you are, but from afar, he looks like he's just involved enough to help, but not too involved where he's a pain in the butt, right?
Yeah.
So for me as a parent, I respected that. At the 25 Honda intro, I just went up and shook his hand and I go, hey man, I just want to let you know I admire what you're doing with your boys, because as big as those boys are, and I've been quoted saying I'm kind of sick of hearing about Jet, you know, because they're shoving him down his throat, but like they're just normal, relaxed dudes, and they seem like they're humble enough. And I'm like, well, that's a direct reflect from the parent.
Yeah.
And then I watch them interact with the team about the bike, and I even had conversations away from them with Lars and there's guys. They're like, dude, he is so good.
Yeah.
And he's passionate about that.
Yeah.
You know, so that's really cool.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about Dazzy, and not to just keep praising Dazzy, but I think all dads could learn from this is that he knows enough to have an opinion, and he'll voice that. But I think the reason he has the trust with the team is he'll say, I think we need this, but you know, Hutch or someone is going like, no, Dazzy, I don't think that's the way, and he'll go, oh, okay, you know,
back out.
He'll pull back out, you know, which I think
that's rare
as a team, you know, and especially if you're pushing for your boys, like. You know, you've been around a lot of suspension guys that like want it this way, and it's going to be no other way. So I think what he's done and how he's gained the trust of the team is he's put his opinion out there, and then it's fair game if you disagree with it. Like he's not going to be upset about that or fight you on it.
From the outside, I've worked with teams and just production teams, and then also I've had normal jobs like at magazines. When you have a team of people that work together well, that know when to say no problem, or maybe let's try that, maybe try your way, don't have an ego. It's so rare.
Yeah.
And when you find that, I want to hold on to that because I work with all different kinds of other teams, and that dynamic is not the normal.
Yeah.
So watching Honda, I think I said this to you before, is like the last 3 years I've watched that team just looks like it gels, and everyone's relaxed, and it's not so uptight in there. And obviously it helps when you're winning, I get it.
Yeah.
But like, it just looks like everyone is level-headed enough.
Yeah, I think Lars has done a really great job at that. I mean, you know, when I was racing, it was like mandatory. You got to go to the shop. Shops in Torrance, you know.
This is pre-Lars?
This is pre-Lars.
Okay.
So like my mechanic, for instance, had 2 kids. You'd have to drop them off at school. And then, you know, by the time you drop kids off at school, you're already going to be sitting in traffic for 3 hours or whatever. So there was a rigidity to that. It's been my favorite word.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. You're using it.
Yeah. Even with normal life.
I use area 1 and area 2 a lot with my wife, just so I know where she's at in a lot of things.
But there was a certain rigidity to to like, yeah, it's got to be this way, it's got to be that way. I think what Lars has done is gone like, dude, stay home today. Like, you can build your front brake at your house.
Yeah. Whatever gets the best out of you for the team is what you should do as a leader. You know, get your guys to do the best that they can be. And some guys work better in the morning, some guys work better in the evening, some guys need a day. Yeah. Whatever it is to try to get your team to work the best is a proper way, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely been the game changer for us, I think. And then like we've done a lot of things together as a team, you know, which is cool. Dinners and you know, things like that I think we all kind of mutually enjoy being around each other, which is cool. I mean, even things like there's weeds on the Supercross track, and it's like, hey, does anyone want to volunteer to go like clean up the Supercross track?
Yeah.
And it's just cool because, you know, people go do it.
That's cool.
So I credit Lars with that a lot. I mean, he learned so much from Kehoe.
Yeah.
And I think he's kind of brought his own flavor to it. And I think he's really created a good environment for that. So.
And he has just enough piss and vinegar that makes it fun to be around.
It's funny for me because, you know, I've been around Lars forever, right? Like he was the test guy when I first came to the team. And it's funny to see him in that role because I can tell he's a little bit uncomfortable being like, you know, when he does have to put his foot down.
The call.
It's pretty funny to see, but I do credit Lars for a lot of that. So we've got just a super good staff right now. So
and that reflects the motorcycle for me. Like when you have a good group of guys that are willing to listen, they're not trying to talk over each other. There's no egos involved. It makes the motorcycle better, and for me, that just helps the team. It trickles down to production, just kind of like what Honda's been doing. So it's really good.
Yeah, I'm glad this interview is about me right now.
Hey, honestly, it's interesting. We could flip this I have a lot of questions I could ask you.
Okay, so one of the questions I you know want to talk to you about, just because people have asked me, you know, like they hear you on Pulp, you know, like Keefer, like he cusses and stuff like that, and I'm like, dude, I know Keefer like just as a friend, you know, like, and what I see in you is like just a super genuine person, and you know, like I genuinely am excited to see you when I see you.
That's nice.
Not in like a weird kind of maybe weird.
We did hold hands before this.
We did hold hands just now.
Yes.
But you know, for me, like the difficult things in my life, I think created a lot of that for me.
Yep.
You know, so losing my dad early really was a huge kind of formative moment for me that I think, you know, when you've been through something serious, like it changes your lens on your whole view of the world. So I know you know, losing your mom, like I'm just curious for you, like how much of that kind of shaped or impacted your life from that moment?
Yeah, that's a big question. And honestly, I didn't figure that out until honestly not that long ago, Trey. Like for me, you have your religion, right? And you have faith. And for me, I'm a little bit different than you. I'm not a big religious person, but I believe in the religion of being a good human being and treat others like you want to be treated. And that's kind of how I was raised. And for me, losing my mother, I mean, every day after school, like all these stuff that we're talking about, my mom was there because she was sick. Yeah. So having her illness, she had multiple sclerosis, having her there every day, even though she was sick, it helped our relationship. Yeah. Now that I look back on it, right? Like I got to spend a lot of time with my mom, a lot of communication, things that I don't think a normal son and mom talk about. Yeah. I saw a lot of things that a son doesn't see with his mom. So for me at the time, I didn't understand all that, right? So I didn't know it was shaping me. I just thought I got the short end. I can't do this. Yeah. I got to stay home. What do you mean I can't go race because I got to take care of mom? And sometimes I was pissed off. But then, and I did realize it late. You know, it's like, man, I could really create a really strong bond with my mom that I don't think I normally would have if she didn't have sickness. So. Yeah. Some people ask me about religion, and I'm like, look, not a big religious guy, but I think in some way, someone, because I always ask the question, okay, you know, not to get all on the religious thing, but like, but if there was a God, why did my mom get sick? Yeah. Why does he do that to her, right? Yeah. So then I would have people come over, you know, we'd go to church sometimes, and I was asked these questions, and they would give me answers, and I didn't want to hear it, right? Yeah. I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
And now that she passed away, she never got to see Aiden, but now that I look back on it, I'm like, wow, the person that I am now is directly reflected because of my mom.
Yeah.
And the things that I had to do to my mom, the things I had to sacrifice, all of these things that I didn't understand until now,
Yeah.
which sucks because you get older. But that's who I became. Like, I love helping people. Like, for me, I hate getting things.
Yeah.
I don't like
Make you uncomfortable?
Makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Christmas time, don't do it. Don't get me, like, I tell Heather, I don't want anything. Like,
Give me a gift card. I'm giving a gift card.
It generally makes me happy to help people. And that's kind of why I created my business, because I like helping people to make their bikes better or not to spend the money in something that they don't need. So all of my life now is a direct reflection of my mom being sick and being to take care of her and all the things that I've learned in that moment.
Yeah.
So then a light goes on and it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that light back in the day. I was just angry.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, to make this a little bit longer of an answer, but yeah, having my mom there, doing the stuff that I had to do, made me who I am and how I am today.
Yeah.
And we talked about, you know, you hear me on Pulp, I'm a very, there's not a big filter with me. Like, there's certain subjects that we won't get into here that, like, it's natural to me, but it's not natural to everybody else. I'm like, you know what? I am who I am. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
That's what I am. And I like to have a good time. I'm serious when I need to be, and I know when to turn it on or off. And, you know, and being around Steve is a little bit of a looser program over there. So we get to do more of that. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like, being around Steve and the Pulp thing, it got to show my personality more and who I am. And when I was at the magazine at Dirt Rider for many years, you know, no one really knew who I was.
Yeah, you kind of
you're in this box, right? Yeah. So having that platform, I think people say, "Oh, Keefer's a pretty fun guy," but also, I just like helping people. That's my main thing. That's what makes me feel the best. Yeah. You know, so it's crazy to see how many sides of me there is. Yeah. But in this industry, you got to kind of know when to turn it on or off. Right. You can't go wide open all the time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that happens to me, like, pretty often, is I hear people change their language around me. Like, they'll, like, catch themselves, like, cussing or whatever, and I'm like, I don't want you to do that.
I do that with you. I do that with you.
Exactly.
I don't cuss around you because I respect you enough to not do that, because that's not your lifestyle. But it doesn't bother me. I'm like, why can't I clean that up for this amount of time? Right. That's fine.
And I think I when someone doesn't, I really appreciate that they respect me enough to like to do that. But I really want people to be, you know, genuine.
Yes.
Like, and you know, I'm sure some of the things you heard when your mom passed away is like, oh, she's in a better place. Yeah. You know, and all these cliches that are really, like, harmful.
Yeah.
And I think what I see in you, and, like, why I just respect you so much and, like, think of you as a good friend, is I see a genuineness. You know, and to me, like, when you think about, you know, my faith, genuineness is, like, one of the most important aspects of it.
Right.
And it's often what people see and they're really turned off by it. It's when they don't see genuineness. And so
that's absolutely true.
Yeah. So for me, like, when I see your genuineness, man, like, I'm just like, that's someone I want to be around, you know, because I see a kind of a truth, you know, truth about you. And to me, like, nothing really brings that out of a human being, like having to go through some kind of difficulty, unfortunately. But there is, like, such a...
Having your dad's accident, did you go through some of that as well, just, like, being mad?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you do a lot of things. I think, you know, developmentally, there's so many ways you try to, like, reconcile what's happening. You know, you try to make it about yourself. Did I cause this? You know, like, is this somehow my fault? You know, why does this happen? Like, so many of those types of things. And I think what I've learned is it's really important to ask what happened, not why something happened. Because I don't think you'll really ever know the why questions.
Right.
But you'll know what happened, you know, and you know, we as people, you know, we live in what the Christian community would be called a fallen world, right? That's imperfect, and in that imperfect world, imperfect things happen. And so, and we as humans make some pretty dumb mistakes sometimes. You know,
Absolutely.
like I'm still like when I, you know, in my faith, I will see my dad again, and I'm going to ask him like, why in the world did you do what you did? That was dumb. You know, so.
And it's funny that you might find out he might not have an answer for you. You know, like I just messed up.
It was, and that's part of life, right?
And when we grow up, we learn that our parents are just normal people.
Yeah.
Like I see that now with my kid. I'm like, oh man, I do a lot of dumb things as well.
Yeah.
And he saw that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey man, let you know, I do dumb things too. But
I don't know what that was back there, but I did it.
But I try to teach him like, hey, you gotta own it, understand it, and try to be better. And and you learn from that. Right?
Yeah.
But going back to the honesty thing, like I wasn't always that way. When I was growing up, I lied to my parents a lot.
Yeah.
Like I would try to get out of trouble. And my dad always told me, nothing that you do to me hurts me the most besides what you just did right there. You lied to me, that hurts me the most. And I didn't understand that until I had a child.
Right.
And then Aiden would lie to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like.
It doesn't even make you
it pisses me off.
It makes you mad, but it really just like hurts your heart, right? Like
it makes me so mad because my dad sits back and I'll call him and be like, yep. And I'm like, man. And so, but that is the reasons why I think I did so much stupid stuff as a younger kid. It made me like, I don't like that guy.
Yeah.
I want to be like this. And that's kind of where I went with motorcycling and testing. And then that's why when you say, oh, Keefer, oh, tester, it's embarrassing to me because like in our world, in our testing media world, like as far as, you know, magazines and stuff, like there's this MXA mantra, like we're the best, read our stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone else is wrong. And that to me is so far from the truth. I'm just like, read everyone's stuff.
Yeah.
Look at everything.
Yeah.
I'm not the Bible of testing. I just given you my opinion. Hopefully that helps you, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I was going.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think I definitely didn't, you know, when I made that comment, I didn't understand the media at that point. You know, I just thought like, here's a group of people trying to, you know, you get attacked a few times by the media and you kind of get like write those people off. Like,
Steve.
Steve, terrible person.
Yeah.
You know, says terrible things.
You're horrible, Steve. Bad person.
But I mean, Steve would tell me that's just a tax that you pay, and I'm like, we're human beings, Steve.
Gosh.
I love Steve, but
Steve's a special case, man.
Yeah,
and I love him too, but like, there's some things I'm like, wow. I'm like, I'm staying away from that because I don't want none of that.
Yeah. No, I love what Steve's done for the sport now that I understand it.
Correct.
Because as a racer, you kind of like go like, why are these people like attacking me?
Right.
But what he's done, what you're doing, what a lot of the media are doing, they're creating a conversation. You know, whenever I see my buddies that are kind of just 4, 5, 6 years into riding, and I talk to them and like, hey, did you hear this?
Right.
It's because they listen to Pulp. It's because they read your stuff, and it gets them like fired up about riding.
Right.
And I didn't understand that, but now I do. And the fact that we need kind of that little bit of excitement about the sport, and it's fun. What do you do with your buddies? You sit around and you talk about your opinion of this, and it just, the whole thing around racing. If racing was just racing, it would be pretty boring.
Right.
You know?
I think we live in a really cool industry because we get to do a lot of the same stuff that elite riders like you do, right?
Yeah.
So we get to talk about it because we live it like you, maybe not at the level, but all of these guys that read my stuff and watch racing and all these things, they're like, I do the same thing as Trey Canard.
Yeah.
Like, I'm riding a dirt bike, I went to this track, or I was at Glen Helen and I was riding with Brock Tickle or Jason Anderson, and these guys are there, you know?
Yeah.
So our sport is unique in that way where you can relate.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's cool in your position, and guys like you and Ivan Tedesco and Brock Tickle and these guys that still love it enough to be around it is rare.
Yeah.
Because you don't get a lot of those guys, you know?
Yeah, I love the enthusiast part of our sport. And I don't think I really got it until I was done racing. The year after I stopped racing, I had some stuff going on with my back. I had my hardware taken out. I got a really bad staph infection. I was just done, you know. And then I went to this FCA camp in Minnesota, and I got there, and the track was like a golf course. And I was like,
ooh,
I needed some gear.
Yeah.
And then I borrowed a bike, and I think that was one of the first times I rode after racing and just was like,
How long was that span?
it was about a year.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, dude, this is fun. And then after, I sat around and I talked with all these kids and people I was riding with, like, dude, did you see that? And I did that. And how you did that was cool. And dude, I didn't know that was that way. And so from that point, I'm like, wow, this is cool because, like for my brother, he just finished college football. And chances are he's not going to play football again.
Right.
Like especially at that kind of level.
Right.
Or, if you're a motocross racer, you're going to go to the track this weekend, and chances are you're going to get a very similar type of sensation that the Jet Lawrences and the Eli Tomac's of the world are getting at a much smaller level. But
and I got to remember that too, and I think it gets lost on me at times. Like my buddies want to talk about it, and I'm kind of done talking about it. Like I talk about it all day, I type about it, but then I remember like, all right, this is what these guys love. It's not their job. So I always got to constantly remember, like, I got my buddy Dave here with me, and he talks about dirt bikes. It was an hour drive here, and about 40 of those minutes was about today and riding. And I'm like, I remember, like, this is what he loves to do. It's not his job. So that in itself is rare for guys like you to understand that. So it's really cool.
I appreciate it. Like, I wish that I could have understood it more while I was racing, because I don't think you make everything pretty personal, because it is personal, right? They're like, Trey Canard is wild and out of control, and he's, all these things. You're like, no, I'm not. Like, you really want to go like, this happened and that happened, and this is my point of view, but they're not really attacking you. It's like they're creating an exciting story.
Correct.
And it's for enthusiasts.
Yes.
And, and I know some people can get carried away, but I wish I would have understood that, hey, this isn't an attack about my character, about me. This is a story about what's happening in racing, and so things like that. I also wish that I would have helped set up and tear down the semi while I was racing.
That's rare.
I do it this weekend,
but do you ever see any riders do that though?
No. I think it should be mandatory in your contract though. Like, you show up early, you set up, and then after your race day, you stay and tear down, because it's the worst.
I've done it once. I tore down one time, and it's a lot of work. And it's but then again, like I said, you never see that, and I'm like, imagine if the fans got to see someone like at an elite level do that and be, humping their back to help these guys out. Like, it's that to me, I'd be like, that's my favorite rider. That's my guy right there.
But I think it just brings a level of appreciation. Like, there's so much that goes into this. People are listening to this, and maybe this was said about me and I didn't like it, but really, it's creating a conversation about the sport that's really healthy for the sport. So
I think some people too just take themselves too seriously, and the racer in general. I think, we know racers have to be selfish to be elite. You got to worry about you and a lot, and I think some guys do that more than others. Some guys are pretty open-minded past that, but for me, when I see a normal guy, kind of like going back to what you're seeing, like realness, like when you see an elite racer, it just doesn't act like a racer when he's away from the dirt bike. Those are the guys that I'm attracted to, because I'm like, that's cool. He just seems like a normal dude.
He's just a guy.
He's just a dude. And then when he goes racing, he's gnarly. Like, that's great for me.
Yep. Well, cool, man. I miss that you don't do any testing for Honda anymore. Like, sitting there for a few days, like, I'm just like,
man, we had good times.
We did.
I don't think people understand what the production process is like, but it's long days. And I think people might think you're riding all day. It's not really that way. There's a lot of sitting around. So then conversations happen.
I don't use this word about like things very often, but I always say that the race team testing is like sexy.
It's way more glamorous.
You show up and there's like 12 items, and it's like bang, 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 bang. You like test this. Yeah, we're going that way. We're going that way. This, that. No, throw that in the trash. And you ride for like 4 hours straight, and then you're like, you leave and you're like, oh, that was gnarly, but we did something. The production day is like,
you got squirrel meats, you got Capri Suns,
some like lukewarm lunch meat.
It's great. And it's organized, but it's like, you might be there for a long time, and some of these settings that they put in takes some time.
Yeah, you get through maybe like 6 items.
Yes.
But that 6 items takes like 6 hours.
Yes.
It's like
correct.
an hour per item.
Yes.
And it's necessary. I mean, it is a process, but
it's attrition is what it is.
Yeah.
Race team, sprint,
yeah.
production, attrition, like
Yeah.
long days.
Yep.
And for me, like I go to the track sometimes if I don't ride, and I go with Aiden. Just sitting around all day watching him is more taxing for me.
I always tell the riders, I am more tired
Yes.
leaving this track today. Like, so I'm showing up, setting up, filming, walking over here, walking over there, looking at segments, all that. I am more tired doing all of that than I was when I left the track racing.
Yep.
Like, sure, I was like pretty exhausted when I left racing, but usually you take a shower and you feel kind of like, oh yeah, I'm kind of leaving. Like,
Yeah.
okay. I leave the race day now and I'm like, dude, I want to go to my hotel room.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to take a shower. I just want to go to sleep.
Just want to hit the sack.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like when I first did my production test, it was 7 days. And I was like, oh yeah, whatever, riding 7 days. By the 4th day, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it.
It's like the vlog. It's the 4th day on the deserted island.
But it's a lot of work. And just, I was with Honda in 2017, my first time starting with Honda, and just being around, obviously I've been around the Japanese engineers and the culture, but like, they are such great people.
Yeah.
Very smart, generous, and the guys at Honda, that we've been around, just really smart dudes, and I think I learn a lot from them as well.
Yeah.
So it's I've been lucky to be around some really good people.
Yeah.
But I do miss Honda. Honda's always has always had a soft spot in my heart for Honda.
Dude, I miss seeing you there, but yeah.
I know. I had to go some British brand, and geez.
Awesome tea and crumpets.
There's a funny story. So I taught Trey something that my family would do. So Trey, then this is what's great about Trey. So I told him this story. This is not going to sound right, but so whenever like I don't believe in something at home, Heather and Aiden, or they think, oh yeah, I did this. Instead of going, no, you didn't, I just look at them and go, I roll my eyes and I just kind of smack my lips. So it's funny to our family. So I tell Trey this, right? And we laugh, and then like a couple days go by and I was talking about something from a test, and I look over and I hear Trey go, yeah. I'm just like, oh my gosh. I died laughing. I told my family, they're like, they could not stop laughing. I was like, this was the best thing ever. I wish I could have video recorded it. It's great. But these are the conversations that when you have these hour breaks, this is what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Some good times, for sure.
Are we wrapping up?
Yeah, I have one more question for you.
Okay, I got one for you, so I'll let you go ahead. You're the host.
This is, I think this one's going to blow your socks off.
Oh,
so
this is going to be the best one?
You go ahead, yeah.
So you were a racer, top level, made a lot of money, you got out. What made you, maybe we answered this within the show, but I feel like we didn't. What made you want to come back and do as much as you're doing now with the team? Because like I said, that's not normal. And I think, how old are you?
I'll be 34, yeah.
34, and you still ride at a high level. Looks like you haven't took any time off. And like, what made you want to dive in this deep at 34 years old? Are you just bored?
I think I was, Kehoe called me pretty close to when I retired and asked me if I was interested. Andrew Short, who was doing it at the time, was going to go do Dakar stuff. And so he asked me, and I was like, dude, I'm just not into it. And I had a pretty serious concussion that I wanted to make sure I'm like not hitting my head for an extended period of time. But I just wasn't into it anyway, and it was kind of a nice excuse. And then he called me a year later and was like, look, man, why don't you just come ride the bike? And so I did, and being in that environment again was really fun.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll go with this. And so the first year I just did, I gave him a day rate. I didn't really have any obligations. Hey, we'll call you when we need you. And I think that year, I might have worked more that year than I have in the years when I actually had obligations. Because I think, the American dream is for a lot of people, is to make a lot of money and then just be free to do whatever you want.
Yeah, right.
And it's quite an unfulfilling life.
I get that from my retired friends. They're like, I don't know what to do.
It's kind of miserable, especially for, you and I, we're thinkers. We kind of need to be engaged. And for me, it's like, I'm in this coffee shop at Evoke. I think I paid the bills here for like 2 months when I retired, because I didn't know what to do. So I guess I'll go to the coffee shop again and drink coffee.
Did you like read books in here? Or what'd you do?
One of my best friends was a barista.
Okay.
So I'd come in, get a coffee from him,
hang out,
say what's up. Yeah, sit at the bar.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's really cool, actually.
Yeah, it was fun.
But you only could do that for so long, right?
For 2 weeks it was cool, and then it was like, oh, dude, I'm like over caffeinated and just like understimulated, So it was just a really unfulfilling, lost time in my life. And when I did this, like, it helped me jump back into a lot of things that had been really fulfilling and that were my passion for a long time. So I guess to answer the question is, like, as humans, we need to do things.
Right.
Like, we're doers.
Gotta keep busy.
Human doings. We're not human beings. We can't just be.
We gotta look at you with all these like.
But
man,
we've got to do something to like be fulfilled. That's
I agree.
Just how we're created and wired, and so I really learned that. And it's funny, like, when you're like, say you're in IT and you spend 20 years developing your intellectual property and your business plan, and so at 20 years you're done doing that, and then you can take that experience and move it into, maybe you're going to consult. As a racer, like, you spend a lifetime developing this career, this intellectual property, this skill, and then when you stop, where do you take that? Like, are you going to take it into business? Which, you can. There's aspects of that you can, but for me, I think it's a great step post racing, because you spend all this time developing a skill set that to not then use on the back half.
Yeah.
To me, is a little bit of a waste. Like, and maybe it's not for everyone. For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure, especially if you've done taking the risk, all that. But for me, it was like the perfect thing in my life to go, like, this is going to be the next step for me, at least for the next little bit of my life.
And I feel like you still get that rewarding feeling.
Yeah.
Without most of the risk, right?
Yeah. It's just morphed. For me, a long time it was just about winning and being a champion and all these things. But for me now, like, you've ridden those settings and those bikes that you were like, oh my gosh, this is so good.
Yeah.
Like, that's almost the moment that I live for in doing this now, is to go, like, I love looking at that bike, knowing I had a part in it, a small part, and like enjoying riding it, and then telling my friends, go buy that bike.
Correct.
Because it's
confidently that that. Did you? So now that you were part of that 25 Honda, did you watch all the media? Did you go back and watch everybody's opinion?
I didn't.
Oh wow. Okay.
No, I kind of got the feedback
when you're there.
When I was there.
Yeah.
But I think I know in myself that the bike is so much better.
Yeah.
And sure, motorcycles are going to be motorcycles. There's going to be things that are not right about them, and things we could have done differently, and things like that. But I ride it, and I'm like, yes, like, we did something.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that's kind of the moment we live for. And same thing with the race team. When, say, like, Joe we're kind of wrestling with Joe this year, trying to find things for him, and just to see him happy. Is cool.
Yeah.
So.
It's
just different.
It's crazy. Like, some people think, oh, the bike is all on Trey. Sometimes it always doesn't go the right way. Sometimes I'll ride let's say a 2025 motorcycle 2 years ago, and then you get to ride it 2 years later when it comes out, and it's not what you remember.
Yeah.
So I was going to that intro thinking, man, I hope it is as good as I remember, because I hope they didn't do anything. And it's nice to see that it's still that way, right? It's still nice. So
I've learned a lot on the production side, because it's like, what you ride then, it's got to come into this production form, and you're like, please don't lose all the things that we liked. But
Ivan's learning that. So I'm with Ivan Tedesco a lot now, and he's more on the race team side, and then he's starting to come over to the production side and he's learning more. He's like, dude, honestly, this is more fulfilling for me at times because I'm learning more and I'm getting to do a little bit more. So, yeah, I just think it's interesting hearing that from him as well, you know, coming from the race team side.
Yeah. And it's always funny too as a racer, you know, like US production rule, you get a bike and you're like, oh, you know, these engineers and these test riders, you know, they gave us this thing and now we got to race it. And but you learn that, wow, there's so many factors into creating a motorcycle. So it's really, I mean, I think this time in my life, I've just had a really interesting, open perspective about motorcycling.
Yeah.
It's just really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So, okay, one more question for you. Think about this hard.
Oh, you've got a serious face right now. Okay.
All right. Would you rather fight 100 chicken-sized horses or one horse-sized chicken?
Wow. I would rather fight 100
chicken-sized horses.
Chicken-sized horses.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay.
I think that says a lot about
I mean, they're smaller, there's more of them, but I feel like I can take them.
Kind of kick them.
But if there's one big one, I think it's gonna.
Think about the chicken too, like Greg you think about a chicken flying, a horse-sized chicken flying.
What came first? Chicken or the egg?
I definitely was born in a lab. That's all I know.
Okay. Hey, thank you for having me.
Dude, you were my inaugural guest.
I was going to say, thank you for making me the first one. I know you're going to start really low and you're going to work your way up.
Hey, who did we get first? Oh, Keefer's in
Keefer will do anything, dude. Just send him out here. I was driving out here. I'm like, Trey better not live 5 minutes from this coffee shop because I'm driving an hour and a half out here right now.
I live 10 minutes, Dude,
That's punished from all the times I got to test right from my house when I went to Racetown or Comp Edge. Everyone else had to drive. So that's been fun. It's great.
Well, thanks a lot.
I appreciate it.
Nice firm.
Oh, yeah.
Be
That's
careful.
a man's
That's
shame.
not my good one.
Hold on.
There we go. Thanks a lot, dude.